Few people realize that Audrey Hepburn's greatest legacy isn't Hollywood. It's her sons. While the world remembers her as a timeless icon of grace and beauty, Luca and Sean have chosen remarkably quiet, private lives, far from the spotlight their mother once ruled. In 2025, they continue to honor her memory in subtle but powerful ways, proving that even decades after her passing, Audrey's influence still lives on through them. Sean Hepburn Ferrer. In June 1960, Audrey Hepburn, already a global icon celebrated for her elegance, grace, and cinematic talent, entered a profoundly transformative chapter of her life: motherhood. That month, she gave birth to her first child, a son named Sean Hepburn Ferrer, with her then-husband, the dashing actor and director Mel Ferrer. Sean's arrival marked a turning point not only in Audrey's personal life, but also in the trajectory of her career. Though the public knew her as a luminous presence on screen, adored in films like Roman Holiday and Sabrina, the experience of holding her own child instilled in her a new sense of purpose that would shape her decisions for years to come. Audrey's devotion to motherhood was immediate and unwavering, and it led her to make one of the most courageous and personal choices of her life, stepping back from the relentless demands of Hollywood to focus on raising her son. Sean Hepburn Ferrer was born in Switzerland, a country renowned for its tranquility and privacy, an environment likely chosen deliberately by his parents to shield him from the intense glare of public attention. While Audrey's fame had been global, she had long valued her privacy and sought to protect the people closest to her from the scrutiny of the press. This protective instinct would define Sean's early years, as his mother navigated the delicate balance between maintaining her public persona and nurturing a secure, grounded upbringing for her child. Following his birth, Sean spent the bulk of his formative years in Italy and Spain, countries whose culture, climate, and lifestyle offered a serene contrast to the high-paced world of Hollywood. These European settings became the backdrop for Sean's childhood, allowing him to experience life away from the relentless lens of celebrity culture and cultivate a sense of normalcy, even amid the extraordinary circumstances of being the son of one of the world's most beloved actresses. Audrey's retreat from the spotlight was not a decision made lightly. At the height of her fame, she could have continued to capitalize on her cinematic success, yet she chose instead to prioritize the intimate, everyday moments that define parenthood. She would often remark that the love for her child far outweighed the allure of awards, premieres, or public acclaim. Audrey's days became a blend of nurturing routines, quiet family time, and careful attention to Sean's development. She immersed herself in his world, reading to him, playing, and traveling with him, fostering a closeness that might have been impossible amid the demanding schedules of a full-fledged Hollywood career. This period also allowed Audrey to reflect on her own upbringing, her experiences of wartime scarcity, and the lessons imparted by her mother and mentors, translating them into a nurturing environment filled with warmth, creativity, and encouragement. Despite her withdrawal from acting, Audrey's love for the arts never waned. She sought ways to integrate culture and creativity into Sean's upbringing, often exposing him to literature, music, dance, and theater. These formative experiences shaped his appreciation for the arts and contributed to his later pursuits in life, including a career in filmmaking, writing, and production. Audrey's insistence on grounding her son in values of empathy, humility, and curiosity was evident in the way she structured his early environment. Though they traveled frequently and lived in multiple European cities, the family maintained a strong sense of cohesion and stability, with Audrey as the anchor at the center. Audrey's choice to step back from acting during Sean's early years was also informed by her understanding of fame's potential pressures and pitfalls. Having experienced the intense scrutiny of the media herself, she was acutely aware of the impact it could have on a child. She deliberately shielded Sean from interviews, public appearances, and the social pressures that often accompany being the child of a celebrity. This protective approach allowed Sean to grow with a sense of agency over his own identity, rather than being defined solely by his mother's extraordinary reputation. As Sean matured, he would carry with him not only the legacy of his mother's cinematic brilliance, but also the lessons imparted during those early years of attentive parenting. Audrey's devotion created a foundation of emotional resilience, creativity, and groundedness that would serve him throughout his life. While the world remembered Audrey Hepburn for her on-screen charm, glamour, and iconic roles, those who knew her intimately understood that her proudest role, and the one that shaped her most profoundly, was that of a mother. In the quiet corners of Italian villas and Spanish towns, far from the flashes of cameras and the applause of audiences, Audrey Hepburn devoted herself entirely to Sean Hepburn Ferrer, ensuring that the son of a Hollywood legend could grow up with both love and a sense of normalcy, a gift as timeless as the films she left behind. Reportedly, following the death of his mother in 1993, Sean Hepburn Ferrer faced a life-changing moment that would redirect his own path in profound ways. Audrey Hepburn, whose elegance, grace, and humanitarian spirit had touched millions, left behind not only a cinematic legacy, but also a deep commitment to charitable work. Determined to honor his mother's memory and continue her philanthropic efforts, Sean stepped into the public eye with purpose and conviction. In 1994, just a year after Audrey's passing, he co-founded the Audrey Hepburn Children's Fund, working alongside his mother's longtime partner, Robert Walders, and his half-brother. The fund was conceived as a platform to advance the causes Audrey had held dear, especially improving the lives of children around the world who suffered from poverty, illness, and lack of opportunity. Under Sean's stewardship as chairman, a role he held until 2012, the organization flourished, supporting numerous projects and charities internationally and preserving the ethos of compassion and kindness that had defined Audrey's later years. Sean's involvement with the Children's Fund was only one facet of his post-Hollywood journey. He also pursued a career in film and documentary production, exploring stories both on and off the screen, and seeking to blend creative expression with meaningful content. These projects allowed him to develop his own identity within the entertainment industry, independent of the immense shadow cast by his mother's fame. Yet, even as he carved out his professional path, Sean remained deeply connected to Audrey's legacy. In 2003, he published the biography Audrey Hepburn, An Elegant Spirit, a detailed and heartfelt account of his mother's life, career, and personal philosophy. The book was widely praised for its intimate perspective, combining personal anecdotes with broader historical context to offer readers a rare, behind-the-scenes glimpse of the woman whose charm had captivated audiences for decades. 17 years later, in 2020, Sean released Little Audrey's Daydream, a children's book inspired by his mother's enduring warmth and imaginative spirit. Through this project, he introduced a new generation to Audrey's legacy, capturing the essence of her kindness and creativity in a format accessible to young readers. This effort reflected not only Sean's desire to honor his mother, but also his commitment to nurturing compassion and imagination in children, the very principles Audrey had championed throughout her life. Alongside his professional and philanthropic pursuits, Sean's personal life unfolded with equal richness. He has been married 3 times and has 3 children, balancing family responsibilities with his career and charitable commitments. With his first wife, Layla Flanagan, he welcomed his eldest daughter, Emma Kathleen Hepburn Ferrer, who is now 30 years old. Through his children, Sean has continued the legacy of his family, instilling in them the values of empathy, cultural appreciation, and a sense of responsibility to others, qualities that were central to Audrey's own life and work. Despite the challenges of growing up in the shadow of one of the world's most beloved actresses, Sean has managed to craft a life defined by both continuity and personal achievement. He successfully bridged the gap between honoring his mother's legacy and establishing his own identity, moving fluidly between the spheres of philanthropy, literature, and film. Audrey's granddaughter, Emma Ferrer. Emma Kathleen Hepburn Ferrer, the eldest child of Sean Hepburn Ferrer and granddaughter of the legendary Audrey Hepburn, has emerged as the most publicly recognizable of Audrey's descendants, carrying forward the family's legacy in both art and fashion. From an early age, Emma's upbringing was infused with creativity and a deep awareness of her grandmother's iconic status. Growing up, she benefited from a rich cultural environment, traveling between homes in Europe and the United States, surrounded by art, literature, and the enduring influence of her family's storied history. Emma's path would eventually intertwine her artistic sensibilities with the world of modeling, allowing her to forge a public identity that is uniquely her own while honoring the aesthetic legacy of her grandmother. In 2020, Emma participated alongside her father in the documentary Audrey, a moving tribute that explored the life, career, and enduring influence of Audrey Hepburn. Her contributions to the film were not merely performative. They offered an intimate, intergenerational perspective on the woman behind the icon. Through candid interviews and personal reflections, Emma provided insight into Audrey's personality, values, and humanitarian spirit, reinforcing the sense of continuity within the Hepburn family. Her presence in the documentary served as a bridge between generations, linking the world of classic Hollywood glamour with the contemporary landscape of art, fashion, and public storytelling. Emma's modeling career has further cemented her connection to her grandmother's legacy. She has appeared in several high-profile campaigns for luxury brands closely associated with Audrey, including Givenchy, the label that famously shaped Audrey's most iconic film looks, and Tiffany & Company, synonymous with timeless elegance and sophistication. These collaborations not only highlight Emma's personal poise and aesthetic sensibilities, but also subtly echo the enduring influence of her grandmother, positioning Emma as a modern ambassador of Audrey's style and grace. Unlike many celebrity descendants who navigate fame solely through their family connections, Emma has cultivated a distinctive voice in the fashion and art world, blending reverence for her heritage with an authentic contemporary presence. While Emma has followed a path in the public eye, Sean Hepburn Ferrer's younger sons with his second wife, Giovanna Ferrer, Santiago and Gregorio, have opted for lives more removed from media attention. Now 24 and 20, the two brothers have chosen to maintain their privacy, living largely outside the spotlight and away from the constant scrutiny faced by their sister. Despite their lower public profiles, both Santiago and Gregorio share the same familial values that their father and grandmother have championed: empathy, creativity, and a sense of responsibility toward others. Their quieter paths reflect the deliberate choices Sean made as a parent, aiming to provide his children with the freedom to define their own lives, independent of the celebrity legacy that surrounds them. Luca Dotti. In February 1970, Audrey Hepburn entered yet another profound chapter of her life with the birth of her second son, Luca Andrea Dotti, born to her and her second husband, the Italian psychiatrist Andrea Dotti. This period marked a distinct shift in Audrey's life, both personally and professionally. By this time, she had already established herself as one of the most iconic actresses of the 20th century, celebrated for her unforgettable performances in Roman Holiday, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and My Fair Lady. Yet despite her unparalleled success on the silver screen, Audrey's priorities had begun to change. The relentless pace of Hollywood, constant filming, endless travel, and perpetual public scrutiny had begun to feel increasingly incompatible with her growing desire for a stable family life and a more meaningful personal existence. Audrey's marriage to Andrea Dotti brought with it a new dimension of domestic life. Dotti, a distinguished Italian psychiatrist, offered a world markedly different from the glittering yet often isolating environment of Hollywood. Together, they envisioned a family-centered life, grounded in cultural richness, intellectual engagement, and emotional stability. The arrival of Luca Andrea Dotti intensified Audrey's focus on motherhood, as she sought to provide her children with a nurturing environment far removed from the glare of the public eye. Audrey approached parenting with the same devotion, meticulousness, and grace that had defined her professional career. She balanced the complexities of raising two sons while also cultivating a home atmosphere rich in warmth, creativity, and moral guidance. During this period, Audrey's work in Hollywood slowed considerably. She no longer prioritized the constant demands of leading roles and international press tours, instead choosing selective projects that allowed her to maintain a presence in film without compromising her family life. Her decision reflected a deep understanding of her own values, the recognition that personal fulfillment and the well-being of her children held more weight than fame, accolades, or box office records. Yet even as she stepped back from the intense scrutiny of Hollywood, Audrey remained engaged with the world in other meaningful ways. Her humanitarian work, which had begun to flourish in the 1960s, became an increasingly central focus. Audrey dedicated herself to causes that reflected her deep empathy, particularly those involving children in need, hunger relief, and global poverty. Her work with organizations such as UNICEF demonstrated that her influence extended far beyond entertainment, touching lives in ways that transcended cinema. Luca's early years, like those of his older half-brother Sean Hepburn Ferrer, were shaped by a combination of privacy, cultural richness, and exposure to the arts. Growing up in Italy, he experienced the rhythms of European life, leisurely afternoons, travel across historically and culturally significant landscapes, and an education infused with intellectual curiosity. Audrey's dedication ensured that both her children could grow up with a sense of normalcy and grounded identity, despite the extraordinary legacy attached to their family name. She deliberately protected Luca from excessive media attention, providing him with the space to form his own personality, interests, and aspirations without the pressures that often accompany being the child of a global icon. Audrey's devotion to Luca, Andrea, and the broader family unit reflected a careful recalibration of her life's priorities. She embraced the delicate balance of nurturing a home, maintaining meaningful relationships, and engaging in humanitarian endeavors, all while sustaining her own identity as a woman of intellect, taste, and moral conviction. This period of Audrey's life, often overshadowed in popular memory by her earlier cinematic triumphs, is remarkable for its quiet intensity and purpose. A woman who, at the height of her fame, deliberately stepped back from the world of glamour to cultivate a private, value-driven life. Through the early years of Luca Andreotti, Audrey exemplified a profound commitment to family and humanity, demonstrating that her legacy was not solely defined by her roles on screen, but also by the love, guidance, and ethical example she imparted to her children. These years of devotion laid the foundation for a generation that would carry forward not only her artistic brilliance, but also her enduring principles of compassion, integrity, and dignity, bridging the worlds of personal fulfillment and global influence in a way few could emulate. In a candid conversation with Town & Country last year, Luca Andreotti offered a deeply personal perspective on his mother, Audrey Hepburn, highlighting the contrast between the woman he knew at home and the global icon recognized around the world. Growing up, Luca experienced a version of Audrey that the public rarely saw, a mother grounded in domesticity, warmth, and everyday routines. "I knew my mother initially as the typical mother who would rather stay home and roast chicken instead of going out on the weekend," he explained. These recollections paint a picture of a woman whose devotion to family was as profound as her fame, a mother who prioritized nurturing her children and creating a home filled with love and stability. For Luca, Audrey's domestic presence was formative, defining the rhythm of his childhood in ways that were far removed from the glare of Hollywood or the press coverage of her public appearances. Yet, as he grew older, Luca began to see the fuller dimensions of his mother's extraordinary life, particularly her tireless humanitarian efforts. Audrey's work with UNICEF, which took her to some of the most challenging and impoverished regions of the world, revealed a side of her that was radically different from the quiet domestic figure Luca had known. Then later on, I saw her working for UNICEF, and I saw this drive and this passion, which was a clash from what she was at home in Switzerland, he said. For Luca, witnessing his mother's commitment to global causes was both inspiring and eye-opening. It was a revelation that the same woman who lovingly prepared meals and tended to her children at home could simultaneously embody a fearless, empathetic presence on the international stage, advocating for vulnerable children and communities around the world. This duality, the coexistence of domesticity and global humanitarianism, became even clearer to Luca through his work documenting Audrey's life. In writing and publishing books such as Audrey in Rome, Audrey at Home, and Audrey Hepburn in Paris, he encountered new dimensions of her personality that even he had not fully appreciated. He reflected on the experience of seeing his mother through historical, cultural, and personal lenses all at once. In this book, I found not only the same energy, but also it was great to see beyond a certain lens that I didn't know. These works allowed him to reconcile the private, tender memories of his mother with the broader narrative of her accomplishments, achievements, and humanitarian legacy, giving him a richer understanding of the woman behind the icon. Luca's reflections underscore the complexity of Audrey Hepburn as both a mother and a global figure. To the public, she was the epitome of elegance, charm, and cinematic brilliance. Yet to those who knew her intimately, she was simultaneously a caregiver, a mentor, and a deeply empathetic individual who invested herself wholly in the lives of those she loved. For Luca, growing up in Switzerland and Italy, this duality was central to his perception of her. At home, she embodied calm, consistency, and familial devotion. In the wider world, she radiated passion, courage, and an unwavering commitment to humanitarian work. Navigating these contrasting facets required Luca to develop a nuanced understanding of identity, legacy, and human complexity, lessons that have informed his own personal and professional endeavors. This insight also reflects the broader human dimension of Audrey Hepburn's legacy. While many remember her for her cinematic accomplishments, her work with UNICEF and her ability to balance fame with family reveal a depth of character that continues to resonate. For Luca, engaging with these contrasting aspects through memory, storytelling, and writing has been an ongoing journey of discovery. It has allowed him to honor both the personal and public sides of his mother, preserving the authenticity of her life in a way that few could fully capture. In doing so, he has not only paid tribute to Audrey's achievements, but has also highlighted the universal challenge of reconciling public perception with private reality, reminding the world that even icons are multifaceted human beings, capable of immense love, quiet domestic care, and global impact all at once. Luca's two daughters, Luca Andrea Dotti, the younger son of Audrey Hepburn and Italian psychiatrist Andrea Dotti, has always maintained a more private life compared to his elder half-brother Sean and Sean's family, while Sean's children, particularly Emma, have occasionally stepped into the public eye through modeling, literature, and documentaries. Luca has chosen a quieter path, deliberately cultivating a life that balances family, creativity, and personal fulfillment, largely away from media scrutiny. He resides in Italy, where he has established himself professionally as a graphic designer, a career that reflects both his creative inclinations and his desire for a grounded, meaningful work-life balance. In Italy, Luca built a life alongside his wife, Domitilla Bertucci, herself a talented graphic designer and illustrator. Their shared professional passions have created a partnership deeply rooted in creativity and artistic expression. Together, they have two young daughters, whom they carefully protect from the pressures of fame. While they occasionally share glimpses of their family life on social media, the children's upbringing remains centered on privacy and normalcy, echoing the approach their grandmother Audrey Hepburn once championed, fostering a sense of security, individuality, and love, shielded from constant public attention. In this way, Luca and Domitilla have created a nurturing environment that allows their children to grow freely, with the choice to embrace or avoid the spotlight as they mature. Though Luca leads a life largely out of public view, he remains closely connected to the legacy of his mother. He has collaborated with his half-brother Sean on projects connected to the Audrey Hepburn Children's Fund, continuing the philanthropic vision Audrey championed. Their joint efforts help sustain the organization's mission, particularly in improving the lives of children worldwide through education, healthcare, and cultural enrichment. Through this work, Luca demonstrates a deep commitment to honoring his mother's humanitarian ethos, ensuring that her compassion and influence extend to future generations. In addition to his philanthropic endeavors, Luca has also contributed significantly to documenting and celebrating Audrey Hepburn's life and career through literature. He has authored and published several books that offer both personal insight and cultural context, providing readers with a nuanced portrait of the actress and humanitarian. In 2013, he released Audrey in Rome, which explores Audrey's life in the Italian capital, offering a glimpse into her artistic pursuits, cultural engagements, and the quieter aspects of her life beyond Hollywood. 2 years later, Audrey at Home was published, delving into her domestic life, her approach to parenting, and her private world, shedding light on the woman behind the icon. Most recently, Luca continued his literary tribute with Audrey Hepburn in Paris, a richly illustrated account of Audrey's connection to the French capital, where her elegance, creativity, and personal style intertwined with the city's timeless cultural heritage. Through these publications, Luca not only preserves his mother's memory, but also humanizes her for readers, emphasizing her warmth, intelligence, and enduring influence. While he has chosen to remain largely out of the public spotlight, Luca Andrea Dotti exemplifies a unique blend of privacy, creativity, and devotion to family. His life in Italy, his artistic career, and his literary contributions reflect a deliberate and thoughtful approach to balancing personal fulfillment with the responsibility of carrying forward Audrey Hepburn's legacy. By maintaining this balance, Luca demonstrates that the impact of his mother's life extends far beyond her cinematic achievements, living on in the choices, values, and creative endeavors of those she inspired most intimately. Through both his private life and public contributions, Luca continues to honor Audrey Hepburn's memory, ensuring that her elegance, compassion, and artistic sensibility remain alive not only in the annals of film history, but also within the everyday lives of her family and admirers worldwide. What do you think about Audrey Hepburn's 2 sons and grandchildren? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.